Before we begin here, are there people that are looking to give public comment at the Finance Committee meeting this evening? I know I have one person that expressed an interest. Anybody else? Just so I know. Otherwise, I might miss over you. So, okay, thank you. Good afternoon. This is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, 5:16 p.m. We're at City Hall, and with a quorum of members present, I will be calling the Finance Committee to order. We got quite a few items on the agenda with the potential for closed session, so I'm going to try to move things as expeditiously as possible. Okay, item number one, minutes to the previous meetings. That was for May 27th, 2025 and June 10th, 2025. If there's any. Okay, motion from Gisselman, second from Henke. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Item number two, discussion and possible action regarding budget modification for Wausau Downtown Airport projects, airport terminal furnishings, and airport apron project. There's a little bit of information in your packet, but we do have our airport manager, John Schmiel, here that's able to answer any of your questions. And this is for Marion. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Sure. So basically, there's two issues going on with the airport's capital projects. One is the terminal building. During the budget process, I guess furnishings were overlooked, and so they are looking for $37,000 to complete that project. And then the airport apron project, again, a shortfall of $37,400, which is a combination of sections of the work area that were not eligible for federal or state funding, and then the addition of work for the Jones Hangar pavement. So looking at those two together and trying to devise some funding options, there is funding set aside for the 1331 runway reconstruction. And I guess finally, we did have some costs that the city had borne the cost of it. When we met with the Bureau of Aeronautics, they explained that they're constantly maximizing federal and state dollars, and so they believe that they will be doing some reallocations of funds, which would return about $90,000 of prior year local share. And they felt confident in that amount, but the timing of it was really the biggest question. So one of the options is to fund these two shortfalls, the $37,000 in capital furnishings and the airport apron of $37,400, with another capital project that we have of local share, 1331, which is not scheduled to take place until 2026. And then when we get the return of our local dollars that we've funded in prior years, we could replenish that 1331 runway project. Or if you felt uncomfortable doing that, we could increase the budget with capital borrowing. So additional details.
Oh, let me explain the furnishings in the terminal. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to wait and see what the state and the feds would pay for on that terminal project, and the furnishings came to the end. So when we knew that project was happening, I did solicit some interior decorating companies that came out with some bids that I thought we could do a lot better. And so the number that I'm proposing for the furnishings is what we've come up with, which is a dramatic savings from the $90,000 quotations that we received.
Okay, any questions? Discussion? And I think these furnishings, if people are concerned, that's stuff like desks, tables, chairs.
Correct. Lobby furniture.
Lobby furniture.
Lounge furniture, that sort of thing.
Alder Tierney?
Well, looking at these two options, I'm favoring, since we have the runway construction not set to start until 2026, I would rather do that than borrow. But that's my opinion.
If I may speak to that a little bit, Carl Kemper from Becker Hoppy Associates. So yes, we're working on the design of that runway project. The design goes through 2025 and 2026, so that 80,000 is what is anticipated to cover the entirety of the design. We would probably be working on about half of that design in the remaining year of 2025, and then the other half of it in the remaining year of 2026. So it may not be that the entirety of the 80,000 would be available this year, because, you know, we will make progress on the design and take some of that from being available for this. But there would certainly be some available to go to serve as this replacement before the new budget in 2026. And I think between that and the 90,000 that Mariana discussed, BOA was hoping that later this year that 90,000 would become available. So it may end up being a combination of the two.
So between the using the 80,000 now for these last two items and getting, you know, hopefully receiving those BOA funds before the end of the year, we should be, we should not need to borrow for the furnishings and the concrete. All right. Okay, motion from Gisselman, second from Tierney. Discussion. Alder Hinkie?
So just so the motion is clear, we're motioning to what Alder Tierney, the first option, basically.
Alder Gisselman, is that your intention for? Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
motion's been made and seconded to use the combination of the $80,666.40 for the 1331 runway reconstruction and BOA funds for the furnishings and the apron work. Okay. Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item number 3. Discussion and possible action to approve the reclassification of selected jobs in the City of Wausau Assessment Department. And we went through this in the HR committee earlier this month, and now it's upon us at Finance because there is a fiscal element involved with this restructure of job classifications. So, are there any questions of that? I see our HR director is here, Alder Tierney.
Actually, my questions are probably for Lisa.
Hi.
Hi. My first question, when looking through this packet of information that was given, there is a table here with some data with the Madison, Village of Pleasant Prairie, Janesville, and it looks like their salary and salary ranges on there.
Yes.
And is that current information that's on there? Okay, when is that from? Do you know?
The date is listed on there. So in the first column, it says date, like the first one's
Okay,
10/29/23.
So some are more current than others, it looks like.
Correct. This has been a project that's been in the process for a while. So this is the data that has been collected up into my start date.
Okay. Just my point of view is getting information from cities like Janesville, Madison, Waukesha isn't comparing apples to apples.
Correct.
I would put to me, this really doesn't mean anything. But if it was, say, Stevens Point, Eau Claire, Appleton, that would be comparable for me when I would look at those
Maybe,
figures.
I mean, maybe demographic wise, but job duties wise, that may not be the case. I'm not sure how that role performs.
I'm just saying that the cost of living expenses in southern Wisconsin, when you're living in cities like Milwaukee, I don't think you compare the rent. I feel the same way about Kenosha. I think living expenses are much higher in those communities, and therefore wages probably reflect that a little bit more.
Right, which is why you also have to consider internal equity when you look at the compensation. So in my recommendation, I did take into account internal equity with the other roles that were in those grades. And then with regards to the step increase, I tried to keep it as mirrored as possible with that. But yes, if we were to do a total comp study, then it's a big project.
Yeah.
So yes, that would all be considered, but this right now is making everybody whole with respect to their peers too.
And I understand that, and I did vote yes in the HR committee, and I do intend to do that again. I'm just saying that I guess when we have a situation like this come up again, it would be much more meaningful to me to be comparing with those that are more our size and more our area. But I do have one more thing. When we were in the HR session, there was some concerns of you doing this data due to the relationship of the property appraiser. And I thought about this because I know it was an issue for Mr. Gisselman, and I also had brought it up. I think in the future, we would need to have a third party be assisting you in this, because just so there would be no reason to accuse anyone in the city of favoritism or improprieties. So my suggestion in the future when we're dealing with a situation like that is to have a third party involved.
I would support that, and I would even draft a policy supporting that. So I agree 100% to save this position from having to go through that in the future.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I also did have the pleasure of Peggy putting together a cost savings report. And for the implication of the $54,662, there will be a total savings for the open role of the previous person in the position who had left. So there is a total savings of $45,626 embedded within the budget. So there will not be that big of a financial implication for this.
For the 2025 budget.
Correct.
2026, that would be to be seen.
So for the 25, though, I mean, are you going retroactive to January 1?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay.
I didn't notice that.
Alder Hinkie, did you have a question? Or okay. Alder Gisselman?
Thank you. I voted against this in HR. I still feel that I'm still going to be voting against this. I think the relationship between the director of our assessment office as well as the HR being that close relationship, brother and sister, and the first thing out of the gate is a reassessment of the assessment office. I think that's just too close for my liking. So I agree that we should maybe look forward to some kind of a larger wage study. But for now, I think there's too much of a conflict of interest at this point in time. So I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Motion from Tierney, second.
I'll second.
Second from Hinkie for the reclassification of selected jobs in the City of Wausau Assessment Department. Any discussion? Okay, not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One no, recorded by Alder Gisselman. Thank you. And it passes. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding budget modification for legal services for the City Attorney's Department. And we should have, I don't think we have a memo in here on that, but we do have our, Ken Jacobson, our attorney here, that can clue us in on any more information, so.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, I'll just briefly summarize the memo and give you some updated information. So I've attached for you the invoices for municipal prosecution separately, our invoices for litigation and legal advice billed monthly from 1/1 of '25, savings due to personnel vacancies, and unanticipated legal expense, yes, was also in there. So our budgeted amount for last year was 70,000, or for '25 is 70,000. We are now $37,219 over that, minus $8,101.21 for the Decker versus Miller matter, which I think Mary Ann agreed when we met to reclassify to the insurance fund, leaving our expenses at $70,000 for a municipal prosecutor for 5 months. I'm sorry, that's our estimated expense. Our expenses then have been through the end of the year, beginning with 1/2 of '25, $57,340. $21,844 has been billed to the attorney's office for unanticipated legal expense. $2,850.77 is billed to our legal expense for municipal code codification. And then the remaining $25,184.23 is for litigation defense and legal advice. And that totals the $107,219, which is $37,219 over our $70,000 budget. My updated amount for savings due to 2 assistant city attorney vacancies to date is $223,000, $530.94. So $223,530.94. Because the prosecutor is contracted, it's billed as a legal expense to the firm. It's not a personnel expense, but I wanted you to be aware of the savings are far outpacing our cost to date, and the municipal prosecutor's contract will be up November 14th. So we have that little bit from half of November and December added to what he's billed so far in '25 gets us to the 75,000. So for our anticipated or estimated expense, we're looking at another $70,000 for the municipal prosecutor for 5 months through 11/14 of '25, roughly $10,000 apiece for each of those 3 court cases that are pending. Possibly $10,000 for additional Jeff Decker litigation, and then the $29,117.79 that has already been billed that exceeds the $70,000. So does anybody have any questions about any of the amounts or billings or what they mean?
So
Any questions?
Roughly, we're looking at a budget modification of $129,000, and that would be taken out of personnel savings, is that correct?
Yes. Is it,
Well,
Is
it's
it
a little more
140?
than that. I had 147,219, and if we subtract 8,101,
I might have missed one of the, I might have missed one of the dollar amounts that you,
that gets us to 139,118, so 140,000?
under 40. Okay, my math is wrong. You are correct. My math was wrong. Yep.
Any other questions from anyone?
discussion on that? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Motion from Gisselman, second. Tierney, anything else? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then these next two items, we're going to swap the order of them because it just makes more sense to discuss the sale before the purchase. So we're going to take item number 6 first. Discussion and possible action approving sale of Wausau Fire Department Ladder Truck 2. And we've got our fire chief here, Jeremy Kopp, to give us any details, but the information is in the packet that, I guess we got to close on the sale now of this, so.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for meeting. I brought this to you, what was it, 2 weeks ago already, and after some discussion with the city attorney and our finance director, we wanted to make sure that it was a little bit more clear what I brought forward. So with that, the packet's there, and I'd be willing to answer any questions, but it still stands the same as what I've talked to you all about 2 weeks ago, so. Other than we're running out of time and we're really crunching and working hard to get this done.
So if we approve this today, then it'll go to council later this evening, and that should close the sale, correct?
All but close the sale, yes. I'm going to be going on Friday to close the sale
Okay,
over in Osceola, Wisconsin.
okay. Alder Tierney?
Can you update us on the sale of the truck that's being replaced? I know that there was
Sure.
a possible buyer, or we were close to a deal.
Yeah. So what happened was when they came and looked at it the last time, there was a list of things they wanted to see done to the truck before they purchased it. Those are things that we contracted Custom Fire, where the truck is at right now in Osceola, Wisconsin, to take care of. They've since done that, and as of today, they were doing some finishing touches as far as cleaning and detailing the truck. And then on Friday, I'll be taking the ladders and pipe poles, which need to go with the truck on the purchase, and I'll put them back on the truck. I'll be FaceTiming the chief in Georgia, showing them that the generator that was replaced under warranty works, and all the lights that were in concern and different things like that all are working. And then what they'll be willing to do is they're going to schedule the shipment of the truck, and they will hopefully be wiring the money to Brindley on Friday if everything goes according to plan. And then I will work with Brindley to get that money here. And then our next subject after this one is where that money would come into play on Monday before the end of the day.
Okay, so when you're saying that money come into play, are you talking about the money that we're spending updating or fixing things in our truck, or?
Nope, talking about receiving the money for that truck in order to purchase the next truck and make it budget neutral.
Okay. And by budget neutral, does that include the amounts that we're using to satisfy their,
Correct, the GMT money?
yeah,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment after we get through the sale portion. So, okay, any other questions on the sale of truck 2? Alder Gisselman?
Well, just so that we're clear, so you have an agreed upon price for the sale of the truck, and this is happening on Friday.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the public, the price of that is 1 million. Oh, go ahead.
1.1 million. Yep.
Yes, and then it's a 5% fee for Brindley to sell that truck, $55,000. So,
Thank you.
yeah, just
Yep, and then
on,
can you also say what we're going to get for the old ladder truck so that they can see that we're just not spending 1.1
oh,
million?
that is what we're
outright?
going to get for the old one,
Oh, okay.
1.1 million. Yep.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, Alder Henke?
Thank you. And if the sale falls through, the whole thing falls through?
If anything would fall through, this is all contingent upon that sale, then everything is back to the drawing board and we would just start over.
Okay. I'll move to approve the sale of the fire truck contingent on its sale on Friday.
Okay. A motion from Henke to approve the sale contingent on closing on Friday. Second? The second from Gisselman. Discussion?
I'll edit that in case you can get to it Wednesday or Thursday, just on the sale of the truck.
Oh,
I don't want to stick Friday as a date on it.
Okay, contingent on the sale of the truck. So, okay. Any other discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that carries. All right. And then, which carries us into this next item, which is listed as 5 on your agenda. Discussion and possible action regarding sole source purchase request and budget modification for the purchase of ladder 2 for the Wausau Fire Department. So in order for this sale to go forward, or in order to purchase a replacement truck, the sale has to go forward. And then we're looking at purchasing a new, not a new to us truck. I believe it's a demo model, correct?
It is a demo, so it's like new.
Yeah, like new, for $1,288,022, which is slightly over our anticipated sale proceeds by $188,000 and change. But we've got a plan to cover that. And I think we talked about that in the last meeting of using the GEMT funds, which is reimbursement for ambulance med calls.
Medicaid.
So,
Medicaid reimbursement.
Medicaid reimbursement, yeah. So, Alder Hinkie?
I think I got ahead of myself. I think this is where the contingency should be, as opposed to the last one. So I guess.
I think they're both contingent
Yes.
upon each other, but yeah.
They're both on each other, so it's,
Okay.
yeah,
I hope people understand what I was trying to get across. So I'll move to approve the purchase of this truck contingent on the sale.
on the sale of the
ladder
other,
two.
of truck 2.
Truck two.
The original truck 2. Okay. Is there a second on that? Second from Alder Tierney. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that carries, and that'll be at council this evening.
Thank you.
So, thank you. All right, and hopefully we're good on time here, so our next item, and we do have a bit that could potentially be agendized for closed session, but item number 7, discussion on possible action accepting response from Bridge Street Mission to operate a year-round emergency shelter at 325 North 1st Avenue. And we had some people expressing an interest to do public comment. So I believe Sandy Kelch, I think you wanted to go first, so.
I'm here today because I believe we must uphold the core values of equality and inclusivity in our community. The proposal to allocate public funds to Bridge Street Mission for faith-based programming, now I'm correcting myself, for the shelter, for the unhoused raises serious concerns that we can't ignore. Bridge Street Mission openly discriminates against the LGBTQ individuals, refusing to hire or accept volunteers from this community. This is a direct contradiction to the principles of fairness and non-discrimination that we as a community should hold dear. By providing them with public funds, we risk endorsing those discriminatory practices and sending a message that not everyone in our community is valued equally. Additionally, we must consider the issues of religious coercion. It is crucial that those seeking assistance never feel pressured to conform to specific religious beliefs in order to receive help. Our public funds should support programs and shelters that welcome everyone equally without any form of inclusion or coercion. The question tonight is not about whether Bridge Street Mission provides solid services to those who they choose to help. It is not about whether their kind of programming should or should not be allowed in our community. It is about the absolute right to provide help to they have an absolute right to provide help to those they deem worthy. They have an absolute right to turn away those that they deem unworthy of services. However, we should not use public funds considering their discriminatory and coercive programming. We must ensure that public funds are used to support programs that are truly inclusive, where everyone, regardless of who they are or who they love, can help or receive the help that they need without fear of judgment or exclusion. Let us stand firm in our commitment to equality and ensure that our actions reflect the inclusive community we strive to be. Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to give public comment on this agenda item? Okay, not hearing anything. We'll go into the discussion. Now, at this point, we don't have a contract with Bridge Street Mission. There was a request for proposals, and they responded to our request with a proposal. And I guess we're at the point right now where we need to decide if this is something that we want to move forward. So with a some type of a contract or agreement. So we've got our police chief here that's able to answer any questions, and then we can decide if we want to go into closed session. So Alder Tierney.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief, for being here. My first question is, have you received any RFPs from any other, I guess, community partner?
So we did 2 rounds of where we published an RFP, the request for proposal. After the first publishing, we received 1 proposal. Unfortunately, we were seeking a proposal for sheltering services, and that proposal was not for shelter services, that was for a transitional living center, and acknowledged this is not a proposal for what you asked for, but a great concept and program, but that wasn't relevant to what we were looking for, which left us with no proposals. We republished the request for proposal with slight tweaks in the dates and due dates, and we received 1 proposal from Bridge Street Mission, which much of their proposal is attached, but not in its entirety for your review. The portions that are not included in there include some financial components and things that would potentially be negotiable in a contract, which is what I'd like to discuss with the committee in closed session, potentially bringing it back forward here in open session afterwards to be able to share that, but not to handcuff the city in negotiations.
My next question, I know that there have been religious communities that have opened their doors to this program. Currently, the shelter is in the basement of one of the local churches that has graciously allowed us, when you were trying to act really quickly, have allowed us to put a program in there until the end of the year. And was there last night, and I do have to say that Tracy has done a phenomenal job of everything that is done there. From the minute these folks walk in to the rules, to the food service, showers. Last night there was 54 individuals who had a safe place to sleep, that were fed a good meal, that had the opportunity to take a shower. It was really phenomenal, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who ever asked me that they spend some time there. But I guess my point is I do see a lot of opposition, and I may agree with some of it, but there has been no other community partner other than some of the religious organizations that have come forward stating that they can do some of these services. And although as I said, I do question some of their beliefs versus some of mine, but I know that there's some concern out there about religious communities, not maybe just Bridge Street Mission, but others. But I don't see where anybody else other than religious communities have stepped up to the plate.
Sure. Let me speak to a couple of the points you made. Number one, thank you for recognizing the work Tracy does. I work at the police department. I don't use the word hero lightly, but I think that that's appropriate for what she's done to help that population in our community. Number two is I think oftentimes when well, I feel like often when I'm standing here with a, here's what we'd like to do, there is information that gets out within the community and social media, and people start commenting. Our RFP would require in contract language that these shelter beds and services be available to everyone regardless of their sexual orientation, gender, it with zero discrimination to any individual. It would require a certain number of beds. I think it's also important to recognize that in order to provide a shelter services, we're evaluating, number one, a facility. Do you have a facility that is capable of housing? And I just want to give some context to what that looks like. Catholic Charities at the CPC has roughly 3,000 square feet, and they were able to have a capacity for 30 individuals with 10 overflow. The current capacity in the basement of the church is 10,000 square feet, and you'll notice in the proposal there's an architect's diagram that I believe it's 8,200 square feet that Bridge Street Mission has available to be built out. Bridge Street Mission is not asking the city for the funding to be able to build the showers and the sleeping areas and whatnot with what would be necessary to be able to provide the facility. That would be coming from donations within our community to be able to do that. In their proposal, they even identify separate spaces for individuals who may be transitioning or identifying in a way that they're not comfortable being with the larger group. I think you might have seen last night individuals, and I appreciate you being present at the shelter, individuals that just would not function well being right next to someone else, maybe due to intoxication or mental illness. And so this proposal addresses those things. Everything we asked for in a proposal to operate, in our request for proposal, is included in this proposal, and I'm very supportive of it. We also look at the individuals and in essence, their resume and their ability to actually perform the service. And I really don't think anyone would disagree that Craig Vincent's 30-plus years in that industry and working in missions that both have emergency shelter as well as transitional living opportunities, like I would consider him an expert in that field. I think the other thing that is appealing to me about this proposal with Bridge Street Mission is they have a large facility that is relatively segregated as they're redeveloping it. They have a men's transitional, faith-based transitional living center that currently exists. I think many people have taken tours there. The women's facility is under construction. They also are putting in a commercial kitchen, and they are building a day center to provide day services every single day to our unhoused population that also has no restriction. Is non-discriminatory, come one, come all. Anybody that needs those day center services is welcome to be there. They are not asking the city or any government entity for funding to be able to do that. I find the idea that in one location, one can go from night shelter to continental breakfast to day center services and receive meals all in one location is very advantageous to the potential success. I also think that when you have individuals that are participating in the transitional programming who know, everyone knows each other within that community, and they see individuals succeeding or making a change in their life, I think that assists in getting other people to make decisions to move forward in recovery or to change their situation. And I also find that very appealing. So I know from working with Craig Vincent and the Bridge Street Mission, where our missions have aligned through task forces and through planning and trying to figure out how to address that challenge in this community. I find him to be a man of integrity. I find him to be a man who has a heart for the homeless population as well as the professional experience to actually accomplish that. One other piece of information that seems to have been floating throughout the community over the last couple days when this got published is that Bridge Street Mission's intention is to drug test and preliminary breath test individuals as they show up to receive shelter services. That's just false. They will not be doing that. I believe that is a true statement for individuals participating in their transitional living center. but not to receive shelter services as in this proposal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, discussion? Alder Hinkie?
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, in their, I mean, I agree 100% with being open to everyone, and I think that's very close and dear for all of us. So I'll take that off. But I mean, I like how you brought up how this must have got out in the media, and did they read the actual proposal? Because they list gender transition rooms available as a bullet point. I mean, that seems pretty open and inclusive,
Yeah,
or at least to me.
I think to that point, one of, I think understanding all the information, that's why it's important that you guys have the ability to ask me questions about this. Craig Vincent is in the room if you should have questions for him as the director of Bridge Street Mission. But I think it's a true statement, and one of the things that I've learned throughout my very long tenure of 6 weeks in paying bills for a shelter is that the shelter's not the place for everyone every night. And someone that might not be successful in shelter on a particular night might be successful the next day. But not everyone is going to be comfortable in every environment at all times. What I certainly hope our community provides is a safe place for those that need a safe place. It might not be comfortable, it might not be exactly what they're looking for, but I just believe in my heart that we have the ability, and since we have the ability, we have some responsibility to help care for that vulnerable population. And the first step in caring for them is ensuring that they have a safe place to sleep at night.
I also find it a little humorous that some of the emails we have received, I recognize the names, and they were the same names saying, don't let the police run this, and now they're saying, we need to keep the police running it. So I just would like to say that too. So thank you for everything you've done in the interim. And
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Alder, looks like Alder Gissman, you have something?
Yeah, well, question, the First Methodist Church is the current, why were they not, or they chose not to respond, or were they invited to respond?
Everyone was invited to respond. They were well aware of the RFP. I think that their ability to offer us that space to rent it to us for a specific period of time in this gap in order to get a proposal, their space does not meet the code demands of the fire department or the inspections department. And so in order for that to be a long-term space that's functional for a shelter that passes our city's requirements would require investment to a degree that I don't think it's possible. But I also don't believe that church, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think they're very happy to be able to provide that space and rent it to us, but I don't think they have any interest in being in the shelter business. And so we received one proposal after we published it and discussed it with as many community partners as possible.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? I know I'm really concerned about, like was mentioned earlier, the treatment of all vulnerable populations with a proposal like this, and that would be something that we would definitely have to take a close and careful eye to on how we can provide, how we can be part of providing shelter services and be open and available to all. So I don't know, what's the feeling of the committee? Should we go into closed session so we can discuss the more, if this is something that we want to pursue further on a contractual level? Alder Tierney?
I just have one more comment. I think that the chief has addressed, I know to my level of satisfaction, that all would be welcome, regardless of their gender, their religious affiliations, their whether they're in transition or who or what they identify as that is one of the things that was non-negotiable. And Bridge Street, from what I understand, is agreed to that. So there are certain things that in their transition program, they do it one way, but it would be different in the shelter situation. But it sounds like all would be welcome that need that service. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Alder Gisselman?
Is that correct also then for volunteers and for staff that may be acquired through the process?
Well, I can't necessarily speak to that, but I don't believe that to be the case, no.
Well, but I think we need to know that. I think as volunteers, I think that this community, I think that there will be a need for volunteers as well as other staff, and I think we need to know what we're entering into with regard to Bridge Clinic, and I think I need to know that because I think volunteers will be a big part of that, and I don't know that that's, in my view, that's not a negotiable negotiable part of the city. So I don't know if the Bridge Street mission is that if that's still negotiable, or I know that it's part of their mission statement is pretty clear with regard to their staffing and their volunteers, part of their who they are. Granted, and I understand that, but I think for the city of Wausau to enter into that is I would not be in favor of that.
Yeah, the chair can feel free to invite Craig Vincent up, but I look at everything that I've been tasked to do with identifying resources and providing them for the unhoused community. And none of the things we've done, regardless of how successful, are things that I would say, I woke up in the morning and said, I really want to do this. They are needs. And oftentimes we are selecting, we don't want to do certain things, but we also understand the need that exists for that. And I've really, as I've evaluated this proposal and looked at it, regardless of one's feelings toward their hiring practices or who is welcome to volunteer there, this is a question about, do we want shelter in Wausau? And I do. And they are the only game in town right now, and they're capable of providing that, and I'm very supportive of this council awarding a contract to them. But I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Martins, on if you want to hear from someone else.
Alder Gisselman, you had something else to add?
Yes, thank you. I think it was 2 years ago, at least Mr. Killian, alderperson, and I brought forth a proposal that we may want to think about the city of Wausau entering into some kind of larger, long-range plan to deal with the homeless situation in the city of Wausau. And that meant maybe operating out of the office of the mayor. I'm not community development, it makes no difference. But I felt at that time, and I feel today, that if this, I'm not sure how the proposal will go this evening, but I think we had an opportunity, and it may be too late already, but we had an opportunity as a community, and I think a little bit of an opportunity with the Marathon County and the City of Wausau's task force to really start to grasp the large involvement of county and city government in dealing with our homeless population. And I think that if we would step back, make it a governmental, I think we can do this. But we're faced with one proposal this evening, and I'm not sure how that will go, but I still feel that we have to have a larger scope of dealing with our homeless population, and larger planning, and admittedly, maybe spending some city money with regard to this, but that's I think been my plan with a variety with two committee of the wholes, and nothing has been materialized, and I would think that the city of Wausau, Marathon County can come up with some larger long-term goal of helping the homeless population in this city. Thank you.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yeah.
Because I think I agree with everything that you said, and one of the outcomes of the task force when we partnered the county with the city was recommendations both to the mayor and the council as well as the county board, and one of which is the county board to direct the county administrator to participate and to put together a team of individuals. And that was one recommendation, and then partnered with a recommendation that the mayor or the council direct city staff to work with the county to develop something very similar to, but not identical to, the Pathways Home strategic plan that exists in La Crosse, with La Crosse and La Crosse County. We are actively identifying who those members would be and who the community members would be. And there is a deadline, I just don't have it on the top of my head, it's early 2026, to be able to provide that strategic plan for approval from both the council and the city. And the second thing that I think has really moved the needle forward, the needle doesn't necessarily move forward quickly, is that for the first time, the city and the county became financial partners in providing the shelter services that we provide today at the church. And so I believe there has been progress. I'm never going to stand in front of you and say it's been fast enough, but I believe we are on a pathway and have direction that allows us to continue to partner and to provide you with that strategic plan for your input or your approval. That the likelihood that that strategic plan does not include spending, I think, is zero. As I evaluate what's necessary, but at least it'll be a document, a living document that can be addressed.
Alder Tierney?
Thank you. I very much agree with Alder Gesselman that it would be very good to have the city and the county partner together in doing the shelter services and perhaps more. But my concern at this point is the police department has done this for only a certain period of time. They're out of this at December 31st, and we all know that this would not happen with the county and the city by December 31st. There would be so much more involved as far as, and you would know this, finding a space, hiring staff, the financial aspects of it, working with the county. This wouldn't be done by the end of the year. So in the meantime, we need a place and we need a plan on what we're going to do after the 31st of this year.
Right, and I think to speak to that, there's a component of the closed session that would have to do with negotiating a contract and expectations and dates and times. So I have information for you that I think is relevant to that point, but I don't think it would be appropriate to discuss it at this moment in open session.
With that, do we wish to go to a closed session so we can discuss some of the negotiating terms of formulating a contract with Bridge Street Mission? I'll entertain a motion to do that. Alder Tierney, do you want to read the closed session text then?
Alder Gisselman, did you have a comment beforehand?
Or did
My
you?
question would be, if we indeed have negotiable or bargaining, are we indeed negotiating or bargaining with the Bridge Street Clinic with regard to this? Or
Bridge Street Mission.
are we bargaining with them? Or are we negotiating so that there's some things loose yet with regard to the contract?
Well, I think there's things that, in order to negotiate, I need to know what the intention or the direction of this committee is. And so potential outcomes could be a decision that is to accept the proposal and direct staff to negotiate a contract with the intentions that you provide. I guess that's from the standpoint of exigency and moving forward, that would be my preference. I think much of that can be made clear in closed session.
Okay, anything else?
Can we have a little firmer idea of exactly what, is it the budget or exactly what negotiable items we are going to be, so that the public knows really what the negotiable items are?
Absolutely.
Generally?
Yeah,
You don't
no,
have
I
to
think
be
I can
specific.
cover most of them right now. I think budget is absolutely a significant one with any contract. I'll use your words that this is a non-negotiable. So we're going to talk about what things are negotiable and aren't negotiable from your standpoint in that agreement, and then from a timeline standpoint to understand what the expectations are in order to commence that contract, and what are the moving parts that are associated with entering into a contract, and so that we're all on the same page.
Will that contract come back to this committee?
That's a great question. This is my first time coming to you with something like this. This sheltering
Well,
contract
this
is
committee
new
as
for
well
me.
as the city council.
Yeah, my hope, because I believe there is agency, if this is the direction the city wants to move, my expectation is the council would vote on authorizing the entering into a contract on July 9th. So you can give direction and in closed session what that would be, and then take some action, I presume, on moving it forward so that we can bring it forward to council. There have been a lot of different thoughts on how to fast track this. But I
You
think
would have to come back to finance this committee prior to, I would think, city council.
I'm not opposed to that.
Well, you're hoping for action tonight after the closed meeting, is that correct?
I think I walk out of here with everything I'm looking for if it is the desire of this committee to accept that proposal, and then you give me guidance in closed session on what that might look like, and some type of action to be able to then put that together with some confidence, or try and meet the expectations that are provided to us. And then to be able to bring that back either to this committee and then to council on the 9th. But if we wait past July 9th, we are kicking the potential for Bridge Street Mission to open well into 2026. I think we're already there right now, and we'll have to pivot and make some adjustments at the end of the year. But I really feel like, given the need for construction, that if every week or two we postpone it from here, adds a month on the tail end potentially. And the sooner the long-term solution can exist and be up and running, I think the better for our community.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Otherwise, yeah, Alder.
Would it be possible to ask Mr. Vincent to come?
Yeah, Mr. Vincent, if you want to step up and just kind of give us a little, just fill us in with anything else that we kind of missed this afternoon, this evening.
Sure, thank you. Just a little context from our point of view of how we got to this point. So the current things that we do is we operate a day center meal service that is pretty much for the unhoused community and others that might be hungry to come and hang out and to get meals. And as Chief Barnes said, there is really no requirement of belief or lifestyle to be a part of that, to be a part of that outreach center. But then we also have our Men's Recovery Center, and that Men's Recovery Center is an optional program that people join to come into recovery. So obviously, if you're choosing to come into recovery, you're committing to being sober. And so we have those kinds of testings and things like that. And that is a Christian discipleship program, and they know that coming into the program. With our relocation to North First Avenue, we've been able to increase the size of that outreach center 3 times. So it's going to go from 48 to almost 120. That's not 3 times, but it's going to significantly increase its size. So we'll be able to serve. And as part of that plan, too, we have a community navigator whose sole responsibility is to meet with the unhoused population or other people in other forms of crisis and help them, connect them to services. Now, if they want to be connected upstairs to our recovery centers, that's great. If not, they're tasked with finding the appropriate place for them to go. And then also the renovation allows us to open a women's recovery center, which is most needed. And those things are our priorities. Now, we had within our building the former retail space for the Bethesda Abelite thrift store. And our initial concept there was that could be a nonprofit rental until we grew to the point that we would use it for something else. And so we actually entered into this emergency shelter conversation with the mindset that, hey, whoever gets this RFP, we would be very happy to allow them to rent that space, and then our day center would be like right next to their space. But there were no proposals that met the requirements. And so when the second round, we want to help. All right, we want to help with the solution to this situation. So we went ahead and submitted. Emergency shelter would operate very similar to our outreach center, where that it's open to whoever wants to come, again, regardless of faith, lifestyle. They get the same service as everybody else. And then they would also, the dynamic would be at that emergency shelter now is right next door to the day center, and so they could take advantage of that community navigator to help them move from the situation they're in to something, a better situation. And again, for some of them, that's going upstairs to our recovery center, but if that's not what they're looking for, then the community navigator would help them locate its services elsewhere. That is kind of where we're at. So when we first were looking at this, we didn't feel the need to do an emergency center because our community had an emergency shelter. All right, and so we didn't need to replicate that services because many rescue missions around the country do emergency shelters. We didn't. Someday we might. And so I think in some ways it comes down to if you would want us to do this on your behalf of the city, we'd be happy to do it. If not, we would probably still over time work our way to the point as our organization grew to where we could do emergency shelter as well on our own. In regards to hiring and volunteerism, we had 177 volunteers that gave us over 10,000 hours last year in our current organizations, and we have a tiered volunteer system. So on one end, it's very informal. Like I had 8 bankers last week from Prevail Bank. There was no requirement for them to come in to do service that asked them what they believed or what lifestyle they were living. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have volunteers who we require to be like-minded people of faith, as we do with our staff. And so that's kind of how we deal with the kind of the volunteer involvement in our organization.
Just a quick question for you. You said, you have volunteers that come on in, go ahead and help us, and it doesn't matter what your faith belief is or your lifestyle. And then you said there are others where you want them of like mind. What is the difference of those levels?
Yeah, it usually has to do with levels of organizational risk, levels of influence maybe over clients. I'll give one example. We have shuttle drivers that take our guys to their vocational tracks during their day. And we ask them to screen at the higher level because they're sitting in a vehicle with possibly 1 or 2 people all by themselves, in that regard. That is a higher level volunteer. I have some volunteers that are on my leadership team. I have a volunteer that does 40 hours a week. All right. Now, obviously, at that level, we want them to be like-minded, in faith and who our organization is, because we want to serve, but we can't change who we are as an organization. On the other end, if someone comes in, like we have Sam's Club that comes in and serves a meal to on holidays for our men. And again, We don't go through Sam's Club and pick and choose and tell Sam's Club who they can bring to come and help serve that meal. And that's, that's on a, so there's kind of a spectrum, if that makes sense. And then we try to communicate that with potential volunteers and then allow them to choose where they plug in. And sometimes we have to say, oh, that you fit in there really good, or other times we say, well, maybe you should consider this as opposed to this. So that's kind of the volunteer model that we have. But at those higher levels of volunteerism with the very direct contact with clients and very large influence on the clients and representing us as Bridge Street Mission, we have a higher level of screening on that. And really, case in point, we had one volunteer, nice person, but she was very given to anger. And so she wanted to be the person that welcomed the population that came at the door. And they would come in there and she would glare at them. And, that's not representing us as an organization. So we have to make sure that we're represented at those certain levels. So it's tiered, if that makes sense.
Thank you for your explanation. I appreciate that.
I know we're bumping up on the Common Council meeting, but I think this is important information that we need to work through yet today. So I think maybe it would be good to go into closed session so we can move forward on this. Alder Hanky?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear the financial side of it too, at least today. So I'll move, we go into closed session pursuant to Chapter 19, Sub 8.5, Chapter 8.5, Sub 1, Sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session relating to negotiating a contract with Bridge Street Mission upon recommended acceptance of their proposal.
Okay, do I have a second? Second from Alder Tierney. This requires a roll call vote. So Alder Tierney. Alder Hanky.
Aye.
Alder Gisselman. And I vote aye as well. We will go into close. If we have any action on this, we will reconvene open session for that matter.